Welcome to the Mindset Gym podcast, where we exercise your way of thinking to help unlock your hidden potential. I'm your host, Emily Irwin, a registered nurse and holistic nutritionist with a passion for all things health, fitness, and personal development. All right, let's get into it. Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Mindset Gym podcast. We have a really exciting episode for you this week. Now, I know I am someone who's really enthusiastic about fitness, but I've got someone on here today who knows more about fitness than quite a few of us. So our guest this week is Jake Olsen. He is a personal trainer, content creator, and online coach. He has been training clients for several years and shares a ton of really valuable information about health and fitness. And so we are going to be diving this week into his career, his insights, and a little bit of background information about what his personal journey with health and fitness has been like. So, Jake, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So I would love to kind of kick things off with getting a little bit more background about you and just hearing what has your personal journey with health and fitness been like? Have you been someone that was always into fitness, into athletics? Was it something you kind of found later in life? How did you kind of get to where you are now?
So I would probably say like I wasn't like a super athletic kid. I got into like working out around 14 or 15. I don't know, I was always a kid that kind of like struggled a little bit with like self-esteem. Never really felt like, I don't know, like I belonged. So fitness was a good outlet for me. Helped me a lot with like my anxiety, depression. I did have like anger issues too when I was younger. So yeah, it was a good outlet for me. And I actually originally got into fitness because my parents got me a gym membership because of the whole negative, self-body image. I struggled with eating. I was bullied when I was younger for, well, I thought I was chubby. So I, would purposely not eat and went the other way. Like when I was 14 years old, I was close to 6 feet tall. I was about 5'11", but I was like 125, 130 pounds. And then obviously I didn't see myself as, being sick or anything like that because, you still have that image in the back of your head. You're like, oh, I can still lose weight. I'm not fit enough. So my parents ended up getting me a gym membership to help, I don't know, try to make me, feel better about myself, but also focus on something that's more healthy than, you know, something that's self-detrimental. And then, yeah, I fell in love with that pretty quickly. I feel like it was something that like I looked forward to every day. It never really felt like a chore to me. And then when I was also like training with friends, I found myself almost training them in high school. I was like, giving them tips and stuff like that. And I don't know, I thought to myself, might as well actually go and do that as a career, seeing as I'm, kind of doing it for free. I have a passion for it. I also want to learn more about it. So yeah, I went to Algonquin for that to do fitness and health promotion. I graduated in 2018 for that. And then, yeah, I've been a trainer ever since. And I got into weightlifting too because of basketball. So I was always playing basketball too growing up. And yeah, I fell more in love with the actual weight training uh, rather than just playing basketball. So,
That's awesome. And it's interesting to hear because I think we hear a lot about like women struggling with eating disorders and things like
yeah,
that, but it's often not as open of a conversation hearing men who have struggled with it because it is such a widespread issue for both genders. And I love that your parents kind of took the initiative to give you a
yeah,
gym membership for that. That was a really smart move. And as someone who also struggled with an eating disorder, I found strength training to be such a valuable outlet to kind of reframe my mindset around
yeah,
body image and
100%.
things like that and kind of shift the focus from what I looked like physically to what I was able to do. And did you find
Yeah.
that kind of a helpful shift for you as well in getting over those
100%.
bad
Because I
habits?
feel like with weight training, especially like if you do, get that dopamine rush from being able to lift a new weight, you obviously can't be starving yourself and then also optimizing your strength. So that is a very useful tool for people for changing their, mindset into focusing on getting stronger. And that also coincides with, oh, I actually have to eat to get stronger. I can't, just starve and miss meals. So it is a very useful thing for, getting out of that, state of mind.
Yeah, I found that to be really helpful too, because you're right. You can't do both. You can't starve yourself and eat nothing, but then also
No,
be, chasing PRs and trying to do these crazy lifts. It just
exactly.
they don't go hand in hand. It kind of forces you to really address your relationship with food and how you're fueling your body, and it really really shifts your mindset around that.
100%. And then you feel like shit too when you're in the gym if you aren't eating enough, right?
Yeah.
Or if you do train, all your energy goes towards that, and then throughout the rest of the day, you feel like crap because yeah,
Yes.
you don't have the energy to sustain yourself. But yeah, strength is very empowering, and I try to tell people like, because obviously a lot of clients will come in and their goals will be like, I want to tone, I don't want to get too bulky, all these other things, and then I just try to tell them like, hey, like just take it day by day, but you're obviously going to feel better. It's also going to be a great way for, relieving yourself of stress from other factors of your life. You'll be able to handle stressors a lot better because now you're, you know, implementing physical stress every day, So everything else feels easier in comparison now. You'll have better mental clarity as long as you're not overtraining.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that. And, you got people on, social media and whatnot, and they're trying to claim that overtraining is not a thing, blah, blah, blah. But like
Definitely is.
very obviously is. There's metrics that we can measure, especially when it comes to like female clients is a very big thing that you have to worry about. And you'll notice that too with like dancers, gymnasts or anything like that, where they're training 4 or 5 hours a day. And like I said, starving themselves because they have to be, a certain figure or body weight. And then that's when you get into like, the female athlete triad where it's like amenorrhea, yeah, bone density loss, you're losing your menstrual cycle and you might not ever get it. You might never ever get it back. And then those things aren't talked about enough, right? So,
Yeah, I think there definitely seems to be a little bit of a misconception in the fitness space that more is more, and
mm,
that, adding more exercises and eating a
yeah,
little bit less and doing more steps and more of this, and that's always going to be better, but that's not always the case because
no,
you're right, it
no,
has such a detrimental effect on your health and the rest of your life at a certain point because it should be
yeah,
something that adds to your life, not pulls
yeah.
all your energy out of everything else you're doing. I
And that's the point,
definitely
right? Yeah, because like that's the
exactly.
thing. If you are like coming from my shoes, it took me a while to actually learn to just like I did enjoy the gym, but it almost became like an obsession where it'd be like, hey, like if I didn't hit, a certain weight on this exercise, then like the rest of the day would have been ruined for me. Or if I missed a workout because it was a holiday or I had like a family gathering kind of thing. But that's the thing is that like I found even for myself, like the less I stress over the things that I can't control and I just go in and try the best I can as long as I'm, making sure to do the best I can throughout the other, 22, 23 hours of the day, right? I'm sleeping enough, drinking enough water, eating my meals, then, I'll just take what I can get from my workouts. If I miss the gym because I can't go for some reason that day, then I'm not going to beat myself up over it. If I have to eat a meal out, I'll try to like make the most educated decision because I feel like that's the thing is like it could definitely be something that will help you with your mental health. But if you start obsessing over the little things, then it won't be good for your mental health. You know what I mean? So, and it just takes time, like people, it just takes time to realize, hey, like we're human. You just gotta do the best you can, and that's all it is.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard balance to find sometimes,
Yeah,
especially if you are one of those people that has that kind of obsessive personality going
100%.
into it. It becomes this thing that there's so many things you can track and there's so many numbers
Yeah,
you can keep track of. And so, yeah, I've definitely been in that position too, where like if I can't hit 100% of my macros or I didn't hit 100% of the things on my workout or
yeah,
I couldn't work out for as long as I thought I needed to, like it feels like my whole day is kind of ruined. And
100%.
it was so helpful to be mindful of when I'm doing too much and looking for those kind of subtle ways that overtraining can show up and that kind of obsessive
100%.
nature and things like that can kind of show up in your mental health. The one thing for me that I found was really helpful to learn was that one of the first things that'll show up when you're overtraining is that your sleep gets disrupted.
Yeah,
And that's been a
yeah,
really prominent thing for me because I kind of feel like I ride the line between overtraining and not very
yeah,
frequently. And so as soon as I tend to cross over that line, I notice it immediately. My sleep starts to go downhill and I'm like, okay, pull it
yeah.
back a little bit and fix that.
Yeah, and that's also a reason why, like, even though you don't want to over, fixate on it, but like tracking your volume is a big deal
Hmm.
because, like, if you notice like a big steep decline and you're like controlling all those other variables and you're not recovering properly, you're excessively sore, your hunger, that's a big thing too. Like for me, I would realize that like if I was overtraining too, like I would not be hungry like at all, and like I would just not feel like eating,
Hmm.
almost like I had like too many stimulants in my body. So that's a big thing that I noticed with myself is that like yeah, like excessive soreness. I'd be tired all the time. I'd be like relying on caffeine, but then I also wouldn't be able to eat the meals that I want to actually get the progress that I need. And then yeah, your lifts obviously suffer because of that. So it is a balancing act, and you just have to learn how your body reacts and figure out what amount of volume and frequency is going to be the best for you in your personal case. So that way you can keep getting results. And again, it doesn't take away from, your ability to live life outside the gym. Because yeah, you don't want to feel tired and horrible, when you're at your work and feel like you didn't rest properly after sleeping. It's not a very, high quality life to live.
No, exactly. It should be something that makes you feel more energized and capable of taking on
Yeah,
your life. And I'm sure it's really helpful for people to have someone like you kind of guiding them and watching those factors of how it's impacting the rest of their life and when they are kind of teetering to doing too much. And
100%.
you talked a little bit too about kind of throughout your journey and getting into fitness and things like that, that it was helping with like mental health struggles like anxiety and depression and things like that. Would
Yeah.
you be able to talk a little bit to how fitness has impacted your mental health over time?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I said, yeah, it was a bit of a balancing act because I feel like it did help a lot, especially like in my youth. But the issue again is like when you start obsessing over things that should be healthy, they no longer become healthy. But again, yeah, weightlifting 100% was a big um, thing for me to like distract myself from other things. I would definitely say that like I would ruminate a lot. I would overthink things, even though I don't come off as like an anxious person. I definitely like, overthink things, overanalyze things, when it comes to like, friendships or relationships, and I don't know, the gym would help me with like just recentering myself because it would be a good outlet, right? And then like I wouldn't like be putting my anger or my insecurities out onto other people because I'm able to have that outlet in the gym. Um, and I think again, like yeah, it's just good for people to work out because yeah, you get the euphoric effect a little bit, um, dopamine. You feel proud of yourself as well, like you accomplished something. And I think that's a big thing too. Like obviously, I'm a man, so I can speak for like men's issues with mental health. I feel like with most men, especially with clients I've dealt with, it's more like of a lack of direction or purpose or something to work towards that leads them to feeling like they're less than worthy. Like it affects their confidence, self-esteem, and that also carries over to other aspects in their life, right? Like they'll feel like, hey, like I'm not going to be a good enough partner, so I might as well not even try to date and stuff like that. But like that's the whole point with working out. Again, it's something that you do consistently. Motivation fades, but if you are able to, be disciplined, do it day in and day out, even when you don't feel like doing it, it has a big carryover to other things in your life. Because then you start, adopting that mindset towards, hey, relationships. Like maybe I don't feel like going to the farmer's market with my girlfriend, but like she matters to me, and I want to make sure like this lasts and it's healthy. And I know that she does things for me, so I'll do this for her. And yeah, it's just taking time out of your day to like make sure you're doing the things that you need to. And the gym could be a great thing for establishing, like a purpose and a schedule.
Yeah, and I think it's something that's maybe sometimes overlooked because like people we can easily appreciate the physical benefits to working out on a
Yeah,
regular basis. And I think sometimes we don't realize just how much of an impact it will have on your mental health. And I would definitely agree that
yeah,
that kind of consistent showing up and doing something to better yourself and doing something even though it's hard and showing yourself that you're capable of doing more than
yeah,
you thought you were, that translates over into like you said, kind of every other aspect of your life. You start to gain a lot more confidence in yourself and in
yeah,
your ability to show up with anything else because you have this proof that you know what I am capable. I'm capable of doing things that are hard. I'm capable of being consistent. I'm capable of being disciplined, and
yeah.
it has so much carryover.
And like not to be superficial, but I know that obviously people on a whole are superficial and will judge you based off how you look. And so obviously the more that you put into the gym, then obviously, you're carrying yourself with a certain, degree of like confidence, or again, people can see it, right? Like if you have, a good body and people know you worked hard for it, right? So then they automatically assume things of you, which may or may not be true, but obviously, it can help people with feeling better about themselves as well, as long as it's not coming out of vanity, right? Where they're only focused about that. But I know for myself, like coming from being, a skinny kid to then working out and again, like competing in bodybuilding and everything, like people do treat you differently 100% when you are muscular and fit because they can see that it takes dedication and hard work and
Hmm.
people admire that, right? And then It gives you more opportunities, and then meet like-minded people. That's the whole point. You don't want to surround yourself too with people who are going to like bring you down or make you feel like you're not good enough or can't do certain things, because then self-limiting, and you don't want to have those thoughts in the back of your mind. You just want to, like, I know it sounds cliche because it's the whole Nike slogan, just do it, but that's the whole point. You just don't want to sit there. You don't want to overthink it. You can't tell yourself like, hey, am I able to do this? Am I good enough? Just leap, do it, and
Yeah.
then take baby steps. You might not know exactly what you're doing, but as long as like you're able to like be humble and know that you need to learn more, and you're willing to ask for help that from people who actually know what they're doing, then there's no reason why you can't get better at anything that you do, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You mentioned competing in bodybuilding, and
Yeah,
it's not something I've ever done, but from what I'm aware, it requires kind of a level of strictness and discipline that is a little bit more elevated to just the day-to-day working out.
yeah.
Did you find, as someone who had struggled with like eating and diet and things like that in the past, did that kind of trigger any of those behaviors for you, or was this easier to move through after having some time addressing it?
I feel like I was very naive. I felt like I was going to do a lot better in bodybuilding before I competed. And then once I did, I realized like how much actually went into it. And also like the mental struggle that came with it too. So I competed back in 2022 at the Toronto King Kong Classic in classic physique, and I didn't necessarily do everything that I could have done to do better, but it also was I didn't know exactly what to expect, but it was like a big mental hurdle, 100%, and I'm like proud that I did do it, and I'm not gonna like take it off the table to say like, hey, I might not compete again, but I know what it takes. And I also know that it is a big mental struggle, and it is for a lot of people. Because I know a lot of other competitors that will, because obviously you can't stay 5% lean year round. So the people that when they're like done competing, they start to hate the way they look because, they don't look like they did when they're on stage. So that can cause eating disorders or hormonal imbalances, or people that just don't want to come off steroids, right? They'll just stay on year round because they have a social media presence and they need to look a certain way in their own mind, right? Because they assume that people only like them for one thing, and it's their body. So the second then that's gone, then they feel like they lost their identity or their purpose, right? So competing is like a different breed, 100%. I don't think people need to do it, but if you're always curious and always thinking about it, like I would suggest, yes, hire a coach that's been there, will guide you along, won't gaslight you or make you feel bad. Because to be honest, yeah, my first coach that I had for competing didn't really set me up for success. I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't diet enough to get lean enough. I didn't know I had a whole individual posing routine that I had to do on stage. I was just familiar with my mandatories. So I ended up doing that. I don't even know if music was playing. I was supposed to submit music for my show and I didn't. I got like my trunks from another competitor that competed like only a couple of weeks before, and I picked them up from him because I didn't order any because I didn't know I had to. I thought maybe I could just like pick them up at the show. Then my coach just made me feel like an idiot. He's like, "No, you got to have them now." I'm like, "Well, you didn't tell me." So yeah, I just showed up at his house. I was like, "Yeah, can I have your trunks? I have to compete in like a day."
Oh
Yeah,
my god.
so all of that was just a mess too. And then like I didn't tan prior to doing my show, so then I was like pretty pale, and then I had to pay extra for extra tanning, the spray tan, and then yeah, I couldn't put my contacts in because I usually wear contacts, and they didn't allow me up on stage with my glasses on, so I go up on stage, blinding lights shining down on me,
Can't really
thousands of
see.
people. Yeah, exactly. I'm like nervous, and everyone's just looking at me. I'm like, I am completely unprepared. And like obviously, yeah, I'll take accountability for that. But that's what I'm trying to say is like if you are going to compete, make sure you do your research, see who actually is going to care about you. It's not just about money, and we'll make sure that you have all the boxes ticked. But yeah, I don't think it's for everyone. And if you do struggle with like mental health and self esteem and how you see yourself, it could be a good thing. But I feel like for most people, it can cause a lot of negative mental effects, and that might be long lasting too, right? And I think it's for both genders, but definitely for women, 100%. I see it a lot. It's like similar to like what I was talking about with like gymnasts and stuff like that. It's like you try to stay lean year round, and you're going to have those negative effects with like bone density loss, period loss, stuff like that. And even hair loss, right? Like you could
Mhm.
lose your hair very easily too if you're always stressed and super low body fat percentage.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a
Yeah,
whole other beast
yeah,
compared to just working out regularly. And I think you're right. It's so important to have the right person guiding you
yeah,
mentally through that, and also just preparing you and knowing what to expect going into it, and coming out of it on the other side, and kind of readjusting yourself
yeah.
to regular life and not being show ready all the time. Did you have any like kind of shifts in focus, or things you were working towards kind of coming out of that show to help kind of reframe your mindset from just show prep to reintegrating into normal health and fitness?
Uh, I feel like again, like once I was done, I was kind of like, hey, I at least I tried it, but I don't know if I want to do it again. So I felt like the come down was fairly easy for me because then I just kind of picked up where I was before because I always loved just working out and whatnot. And I've never been a guy who was very big on eating like, a lot of fast food or, cheat meals or anything like that. And I've never really been someone with like a big, hunger either. So when I was like coming out of my contest prep, I didn't really have like a big rebound. Whereas like I know some guys because obviously they over diet and they get really, really lean. They end up like gorging themselves on things that they weren't able to eat, and then that's when it becomes, pretty bad. I've seen like people gain like 20 pounds in the weekend. And it could be like from water, like retention. They would have like edema in their ankles and stuff like that. Their blood pressure goes high, especially if they're on, performance enhancing drugs. So it's a lot of variables that you have to look at and be careful about. Um, yeah, but I feel like for me, yeah, not much changed. I feel like again, it was an opportunity for me to like learn more about it and see that like, hey, it is a lot harder than some people give it credit for. Because you'll see like those people in comments, they'll be like, "Oh, I could do this if I competed," or another one that's always funny too is just like, "If I took steroids, I could look like you." So I don't know. People are always funny, and then like the second that you actually do something, you realize, oh yeah, like this is actually is pretty hard. So the keyboard warriors always make me laugh, and like experience is always going to be a good thing, right? As long as that
Yeah.
you treat it as like a learning opportunity and then, repeat past mistakes and then you learn more about yourself. And self reflection is always important. So, and accountability. So, like I
Mhm.
said, when I competed, I realized, hey, like after I was done, I was like, hey, I could have done this a lot better. I could have been on diet, a little bit more. Could have increased the cardio a bit more. Obviously, now I know posing is a big thing that I need to work on. So, if I were to compete again, make sure to do that. Obviously, like I said, tan before I actually have to compete. So then that way I don't have to pay extra for tanning. So yeah, all those things were good learning lessons. And then that's the whole point. Yeah, if you can go through things and learn more about yourself and learn what it takes, then it's always going to be a good thing.
Mhm. Yeah, and that kind of self-awareness and accountability kind of piece in show prep, and just kind of outside with fitness in general. Do you find that being in a career where you are training other people in this field has kind of helped shift your mindset a little bit and helped make you a little bit more aware and conscious of the ways at which you're showing up in this
100%.
space? Yeah.
Because I feel like for me too, like because of how I would like talk to myself like as a kid, and I'm still guilty of it, I became more aware that I have to be kinder to myself after training clients who are like in a vulnerable, state. Because like a lot of times, if people are going to a gym, again, it's a new situation for them. They feel really uncomfortable, nervous. It's daunting. They're afraid that people are going to judge them. And I would always give them advice to help them feel more at ease and not to be too hard on themselves or to hate themselves over things like, they can't always control. So I have to like remind myself, hey, take your own advice. Don't be too hard on yourself. Do what you can. And I feel like it was, a bit of a learning curve, and it took time for me to get like that. But slowly and surely, I'm getting better at it. So I feel like, yeah, training clients and helping people through those obstacles helped me also get better at how I treat myself and how I see myself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a learning curve for sure, and it's definitely it's easier a lot of the times to
yeah,
give advice to other people than it is to actually take
yeah,
advice
exactly.
yourself. I find that a lot just working in healthcare, it's very easy for me to go to my patients and say, you should be doing this and you should be doing this. But then
Yeah.
when I look at my own life, it's like, oh, well, I'm not really doing that.
No, exactly.
Of
Yeah, you're
all
like,
of all the things like advice that you've ever given your patients, has there been kind of one or two things that you have found the hardest to actually implement in your life?
hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to like go back to, like the whole Park Q lifestyle factor sheet that, anybody gets at a gym when they're like interested in personal training, where it's kind of like habits. You're like, how often are you eating out? How often are you drinking? Or anything like that. Like obviously for me, I'll be open, like I do probably drink more than I should. But, obviously with your clients and you're bringing them in, you're going to tell them, hey, like this costs a lot of money. Shouldn't be doing it. It's an anti-nutrient. It's going to, hinder what you're able to do in the gym because your body won't be able to absorb protein properly. And your body's first, course of action is trying to get rid of the alcohol. So that's why you're not able to absorb it properly. And um, yeah, I feel like that's something I could really reiterate well to clients or potential clients, and then I don't necessarily do myself. I think yeah, everybody has vices, and it's easier to preach than to fix yourself with those types of things, especially if it helps you feel better mentally. Because I feel like for me, it was always something that helped me with feeling more calm and less anxious in like social situations, especially like if it's a big public event or anything, or I'm with a lot of friends. Oftentimes I could get overwhelmed with a lot of people talking or a lot of noise, and then that would help me. Especially like the fact that I was an undiagnosed ADHD for like the longest time, and I only realized that I had it because of the fact that like with social media, you start getting all these like videos where it's just like, oh, you do this and do that and do this, and it was like I was checking off like 18 boxes. And then I remember too, like, teachers when I was growing up too would always wanted me to get medicated, but my mom never wanted me to. And then I was kind of realizing, you know what, like, yeah, maybe I need to get medicated because, yeah, I don't want to be turning to alcohol to make myself feel like, a normal human being. So, but that's like, important to always be accountable and also realize, things aren't healthy for you, right? And sometimes people could be in denial. They'll be like, oh, I don't have a problem, right? It's not an issue. But then if I'm talking to a client and I'm bringing up alcohol with them, right? And then they're saying like they're circling the box as like 10 plus drinks a week, you know, that's when I come in looking like a hypocrite and I could be like, hey, like you shouldn't be doing that, especially if your goal is to lose all this weight or, like obviously you're a commercial gym trainer, you have that sales pitch that you're trying to follow, right? So if you have all these objections and they're like, "Oh, it's too expensive," blah blah blah, then you can do like the math for them and be like, "Okay, so you're going out to the bar and you're having 10 drinks a week, right?" And then you're like doing the math in front of them and you're like, "Okay, well that'd be like $200, right?" So that's like one biweekly payment that you could be spending on personal training, which will make you feel better versus spending on alcohol, which is again not going to get you closer to your goals. So,
Yeah, it's always so much easier to kind of see that picture in somebody else and be able to kind of
yeah,
spot those problem points. Whereas when you're in the thick of it and doing those
yeah,
things yourself, it's much easier to just be like, oh, well, it's fine. I don't have an issue. I'm
yeah.
good. Like, yeah, there's
Yeah,
no
or
problem
I
here.
still look good. I still look good. I haven't gained weight
Yeah,
from
like
all the
I'm still kind
alcohol
of
I'm
checking
drinking.
all the boxes. We can ignore this one
Yeah,
problem thing. And so yeah,
80-20 rule, 80-20 rule.
exactly, yeah. So it's nice that you were able to kind of have that self-awareness piece and be like,
Yeah,
oh, okay, maybe this is something I need to address in myself as well.
100%. Yeah. And that's the
But
thing
my,
too. Yeah, you work with all those different clients, so you start to notice different things too, and uh, opens your eyes a lot, right? Especially like to how certain vices can get bad, and then that also will help you stop yourself from getting to that point as well. Yeah, because I worked with a whole wide variety of people, and I would say that yeah, addiction is a big thing that obviously working out can help with,
Mhm.
but could get really bad and can lead to other aspects of your life going downhill pretty quick. So yeah, I'm glad that I was able to like curb that a lot, and it made me feel a lot better, and obviously saved me a lot of money too. And again, you got to think about it in the grand scheme of things. Is this getting me closer to my goal, or again, is it going to like make me feel worse, but temporarily feel better, quote unquote?
Mhm.
And then yeah, costs a lot of money, and then yeah, just isn't attractive too. Let's be honest here, right? Like you're going on dates, or you're talking to someone, and they realize, oh, this guy's drinking every day. Okay, Seems like he's a real winner. So
Yeah, it can be really hard. Like in diet and exercise, I think there's probably a lot of things kind of under that umbrella that people
yeah.
commonly struggle with and have a really hard time overcoming, and it can be really helpful to have somebody kind of guiding them through that. Of the patients that you've trained, do you find that there's some really common obstacles that people come to you with that they're kind of struggling with initially and having trouble overcoming on their own?
Hmm. I think with like in a commercial gym aspect, 100% is finances. Um, so the last time I was working at Good Life, I was working at the Good Life in Saint Laurent Mall. I was there for about 2.5 years, and I could kind of see like the writing on the wall. It's not that like people weren't paying for personal training, but like with the state of the economy and everything getting more expensive, people's priorities obviously shift. And obviously, the prevalence of YouTube and social media and whatnot, there are people that are putting out free content. Doesn't always mean it's good content, but people are under the impression that, they could just watch a few videos and then know how to work out properly, right? So the need to prioritize personal training and putting money towards that is slowly diminishing because of those two things: the prevalence of social media, and then the economy not being that great, and the uncertainty, right? Because obviously you're working with a Good Life trainer, you're signing up for a contract term. Well, that would be
Mhm.
the goal, right? Like, as a trainer, I want that, because then that locks you in as a client with me, and I could work with you longer. You'll get better results while working with me, but also obviously if you're signing up for 6 months or 12 months, I'm going to get, 10% commission of the lump sum contract value, right? So there's incentive for me to do that. But if people are looking at the economy and they're really realizing like, hey, I'm not saving any money, I have all these other responsibilities, the likelihood of them wanting to pay, $250, $300 biweekly is going to be very low, right? So I
Mhm.
think that would be the biggest obstacle. The other one would be mental, but in regards to their ability to stay consistent with everything that needs to be done to get them to where they need to be. Because again, I feel like motivation is a big buzzword that everybody likes to, cling to or associate with. Um, but that comes and goes, especially like the longer you do it. If you're a beginner at the gym, you'll notice like results pretty quickly, right? And that's what we call like newbie gains. So you get hooked on that. You're like, hey, I'm getting stronger every week. My clothes are fitting tighter. Like if you're a dude, right? And you're like, oh, my arms are looking bigger, and I'm getting all these compliments. But then the second that goes away, and you hit that 3-4 month plateau, a lot of people will relapse and then go back to not working out, not realizing that that's just gonna make them lose everything that they had, right? So that's the whole issue with like, excuse me, New Year's resolutioners, right? They come in with motivation, and then that quickly tails off, especially if they don't know what they're doing and they just stick to cardio machines or weightlifting machines because it feels safe and easier. But typically, the stuff that feels easier is not going to get you to where you want to be. You kind of have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I agree. I think a lot of people rely really heavily on motivation, and they expect that this really excited, motivated feeling they have when they first start is something that's going to carry out through the entire duration of what they're doing, and that's just not the case. Like
yeah,
nobody's going to feel motivated all the time, and I think people tend to really underestimate the amount of discipline and just showing up and doing the thing
yeah,
anyways that you need to do to actually get to that end goal. Do you have any strategies for kind of helping move people through that kind of feeling that they get when they are a few months in and they're hitting a plateau and they want to quit and they don't want to keep going because it feels like they're not making that really quick progress that they were seeing in the beginning?
yeah. I feel like obviously this sounds like a sales pitch for me and my services, but that would be the whole point. Is that if you feel like you're stuck and you don't know what you're doing, then obviously seek help from someone who is, a professional and has the education experience behind them to help guide you through that situation. Because yeah, there's no shame in asking for help, and it would be better off to do that than to say like, you start spiraling and then you relapse because you just feel like you can't do it or there's no point, right? So that'd probably be my biggest, form of advice for that specific person.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to like training clients and talking about fitness and helping them reach their goals,
Yeah,
is nutrition something that you touch on with them? Do you find that that's a really important piece of the
yeah,
puzzle for them alongside the training in the gym?
100%. I feel like without nutrition, you're not going to get anywhere where you want to be. And there's like a lot of misinformation and also anxiety around nutrition, right? I like to tell clients that it's like almost like you're working with a budget in regards to like if you're saving money or if you're losing money. And the reason for that is that now it becomes more measurable, right? A lot of times people could be like, "Oh, I eat healthy," but then they're not portion controlling. They're not realizing that there's all these extra calories coming from, their sauces that they're using or the oils that they use while cooking and stuff like that. And then obviously ignorance is bliss. You could be like, "Oh, I'm eating healthy, but I'm not losing weight," right? But then you educate them on that, and you get them to use a food scale, and they see where their calories are coming from. It makes it a lot more measurable for them, but can also lead to better peace of mind as long as they're meal prepping and not eating out too often, or if they are, then they're choosing you know safer options that fit their goals. Because I feel like there's a lot of anxiety around nutrition. I would deal like with a lot of people who had eating disorders as well, and the whole idea of using a food scale or meal prepping could be very anxiety provoking for them. They're like very against it, even though a lot of times they'll get to the point where they will start to do it and they'll realize, hey, like this actually works well for me. It actually gives me less anxiety. Because I feel like if you're someone who deals with anxiety, the whole idea of not knowing would cause more anxiety. And that's why I try to tell people. It's like you're not calorie counting or anything like that. Like I would not make meal plans for clients at Good Life just due to legal liability, but like I have some online clients that I train and then I would give them meal plans, and that'd be the whole idea is that we're just going to be measuring for progression in terms of like, body composition, or is like the waist circumference going down, is the body weight going down? Are we able to maintain our strength for the most part while even in a deficit? Because if we're doing a slight deficit, we shouldn't be losing too much strength, especially because like I'd always try to prioritize protein with my clients because that's going to be the main driver for fat loss and muscle gain. So if you're able to do both, then you're winning, right? Makes it a lot easier to lose body fat the more muscle mass that you also have because it also demands more energy. So that's why I try to tell people. It's just like it might be uncomfortable, it might be new, it might be foreign to you, but the whole idea again, like as long as you can do little baby steps each day, especially when it comes to nutrition, it is the most important thing. Like the weight training, yes, it is important, but it's such a small part of the day, and it also doesn't burn as many calories as people think it does. So you got to make sure you know where your calories are coming from, especially if your goal is fat loss. If you don't have a plan, you don't know where your calories are coming from, it's going to be very hard to lose body fat because it is similar to a budget. If you're
Mm-hmm.
not saving, you don't know where your money's going, well, it's going to be hard to save money. So,
Yeah, and I think that's such good advice, kind of approaching it with baby steps and encouraging really small changes. Because you're right, I think for somebody who is struggling with their diet or has no idea where they're going with their diet, having a ton of change thrown at them right away can be
yeah,
really scary and really daunting. And I have found using a food scale really helpful for that kind of same thing, just that
yeah,
awareness piece. Even if you don't use it forever, having it for a period of time, just so you know like how much of certain condiments you're using, what this
yeah,
amount of protein looks like. Just kind of having those numbers in your head can be so incredibly helpful because you're right. Otherwise, you're guessing and you don't really know where you're at with your nutrition, so it can be very easy to feel like you're doing all the right things and you're checking all the right boxes, but you're not seeing the results because there's
yeah.
pieces to the puzzle that you're missing.
Yeah. Or again, they start following advice that is not legitimate online. As you know, love crash diets and trendy diet trends that pop up on social media, or people who are charlatans and try to like peddle their credentials, but like say their credentials aren't even within the field that they're covering, right? Like I'm going to name drop right now, and I don't care if it causes any controversy because it's kind of funny. But it's like the one guy who was very popular for keto diet and intermittent fasting. He would peddle his doctorate behind it, but it was a doctorate in chiropractic. And it's like, okay, like you did not, receive almost any nutrition education, if any. I don't know, but
Yeah.
like you're giving advice as if it's like absolute. and it's like if keto diet helped you lose weight and it's maintainable for you and all your health markers are fine, then all power to you. But I really hate it when people peddle things as being like absolute truth, using their credentials to verify their claims and information, but then like they could be doing a lot more harm than good, right? It's like, oh, I'm eating a pound of butter and a pack of bacon a day. That must be really healthy for me because it's keto. Woo! It's like, yeah, no, that's not going to be healthy, right? So
No,
that's why I try to tell people, it's like, try to use a little bit of common sense. Like, I'm not trying to be a dickhead, but it's like, how can you think eating like a pound of butter and bacon a day is going to be healthy for you, even if you're losing weight? Like, it's kind of like the people who are losing weight with Ozempic too. It's like a lot more negative research is coming out in regards to Ozempic or any kind of like GLP-1 agonist medication. And I try to tell people, it's like if something feels too good to be true, it probably is. There's not ever going to be a medication where it's just 100% pure benefit and no negative drawbacks, right? You're seeing people who are taking Ozempic, but then they're not implementing weight resistance training. They're not eating enough protein and all that, and now they're like losing significant amount of like bone mass, muscle mass. I've also seen like studies in regards to like thyroid cancer rates increasing a lot within people who were taking Ozempic, like leaky gut syndrome, neurotransmitter dysregulation in regards to like dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, and a lot of those can have like negative, downstream effects in terms of, cognitive, illnesses later on in life, right? Like Parkinson's, for example, is usually an issue with dopamine and not being able to use dopamine effectively. So all those things are pretty big deal.
I think there's often so much nuance that is missed with all of these things. There's a lot of people who kind of like you said don't have the right credentials behind it, and they're kind of just going off anecdotal evidence of this worked for me, therefore it must work for everybody.
Yeah,
And that's not really often the case. There is so much nuance that needs to go into
yeah,
what diet works best for each individual person based on their body type and their goals and things like that. And so it's super like helpful and useful to have somebody like yourself kind of working through them and giving them something that's more tailored to their individual needs as opposed to
yeah.
saying this is what everybody needs to follow. Do you find that you've ever had clients give you pushback on the advice that you give them because of,
Oh,
oh, I saw this on the internet and I heard this is
100%.
better?
Yeah. 100%. So like with those types of clients, like obviously, I'm a libertarian. I'd just be like, hey, do what works well for you. I'm just speaking like from what I learned in college and what I've seen work well and like the research and studies that have been done. Like a lot of times people again try to reinvent the wheel just to, especially on social media, to stand out, be trendy, get engagement because obviously if they post outlandish, content as well, you can create an uproar, people arguing in the comments and whatnot, and that'll just drive more engagement to their page, especially like say if like they have affiliate codes or anything like that, gets them more money. YouTube, same thing, get more views, get more money for ad revenue, right? So you got to see if there's any kind of like conflict of interest with any of these people that they're posting things. But like even for those clients too, like if I feel like I'm still in the right in regards to the advice that I'm giving, then I try to back that up with research that they can also look over and read. So then that way they can see like I'm not just, spewing bullshit from my ass. So, and then yeah, give them the freedom of choice. And then, like as long as I can like monitor them and make sure they're trying to be as healthy as possible and it's something that they can adhere to and they feel good on, then, all power to them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do
I
you
find that the
find?
one thing, though, I don't mean to cut you off. It's just in regards to the Ozempic thing, and I did find this pretty funny. It's like the amount of times that like I would have a consult with a client, and then they would try to claim that they don't know why they're overweight and whatnot, and that they don't eat very much. They would try to like claim that they have a thyroid issue or anything like that, and I would, ask them. I was like, "Did you ever, get blood work done? Were you ever
No.
diagnosed with being?" Having a hypothyroidism. And then it'd be like, no. I'm like, well, you can't just like play medical doctor and claim that you have a certain issue. And the important thing to also know with, thyroid hormone production and whatnot is that, funnily enough, people who have hypothyroidism typically actually have less ghrelin signaling. So they typically actually feel less hungry, whereas people who have hyperthyroidism typically actually have higher levels of ghrelin and they actually want
Mhm.
to eat more. And then the effect of the thyroid hormone on impacting energy expenditure isn't as much as people actually think it is. It's usually anywhere between 8 and maybe 12% in terms of like it's a total effect on your body's energy expenditure, right? So is it going to be a make or break thing if you are low thyroid and make it so that like you're going to, be overweight or gain weight? Probably not. And so like with those types of people, I again try to get them to do a food log. And then, a lot of times people actually underreport calories as well because they
Mhm.
won't account for, the oils that they're using or certain snacks or don't know actually how to portion control, especially if they're not using the food scale, right? So um, it's funny because even the research has backed this up that like funnily enough, women have a higher degree of underestimating calories consumed than men. But then also the same clients that I would be told, hey, I don't even eat that much, I don't know why I'm overweight, would then also take Ozempic and then end up losing all the weight, which is funny because like you look at the main mechanism of action with Ozempic, it completely,
Takes
lowers
your
ghrelin.
appetite.
Yeah, ghrelin. So you're eating less. So it
Hmm.
is a portion control issue. It wasn't having any kind of hormonal downstream effects. One of the other side benefits, obviously, is that it would delay gastric emptying and it would help with binding food, right? So then obviously you feel fuller for longer too. And then you have the ghrelin effect. But yeah, it is kind of funny because it kind of like shows the flaws in their logic or again, like the cognitive dissonance, like, oh, I'm not the issue. It's my body that's working against me. And then, you take your Ozempic and you lose weight. Well, obviously, you claiming that you weren't eating that much was a lie because now you're taking something that is controlling your appetite. And now you're losing weight. So everybody can get to the point, like to a body that they want that is healthy, but you just got to realize, like, it does take accountability. And you got to realize, hey, like, if I get my blood work done and it tells me I don't have any like, hormonal dysregulation, then it is on me to just make sure, hey, I need to eat healthy, I need to work out, and then obviously, yeah, do the best that you can. But you can't, live life like you're a victim. You know what I mean? You can't be
Yeah.
like, oh, like there's no use in me trying. I won't be able to do this. I won't be able to do that. It's like you don't know until you try, and then you'll realize, hey, like it's a good thing to keep myself accountable.
Yeah, and it's so helpful to have somebody working with you and kind of question those things and force
Yeah,
you to be a little bit more accountable. Because I mean, yes, if somebody does have an actual hormonal or health related
yeah,
issue that is impeding their ability to do these things, having that addressed will make a massive difference. But
yeah,
I would agree with you that I think there's probably a lot of people who are not seeing where they're kind of missing the mark and what areas they are contributing to this, or they're not willing to accept the areas in which they're contributing to this. And so it's very
yeah,
easy to be like, oh, well, it must be this. It must
yeah,
be this outside factor that I have no control over that is causing me to have all these problems and not the actual lifestyle things that I have the ability
100%.
to change.
And that's the thing too, is like working with people too, you have to realize like, hey, I can't just be as like blunt as I want to be, because
Mhm.
obviously there's emotional roots with what they're dealing with. And again, like they're coming to you already in a vulnerable state.
Yeah.
So I try to lay it all out in front of them in terms of like, this is like what you're going to get with me. And I'll even be like, hey, like sometimes I will be blunt, but it's not because I'm attacking you or trying to make you feel bad. But I'll also, again, try to be as comforting as possible. But they need me to keep them accountable. Because I feel like
Yeah.
if you handhold too much and you try to be your client's best friend too much and you don't tell them what they need to hear, that will also impact your business.
Yeah, you're also
Because
doing them a disservice by
if they
not
lack
being honest with them.
accountability, what's going to happen if they're not getting the results that they think they're paying for?
They're gonna
You're
blame
going,
you.
yeah, you're going to get thrown under the train, under the
Hmm.
bus, train, whatever. So that's the whole point. Is you got to be the asshole sometimes, but you just got
Yeah.
to be careful with your wording, and then again, just be clear and cut, and be like, hey, you're hiring me for a reason. I'm creating a game plan for you. So like, say your goal is 20-pound weight loss. Obviously, we have a thing called a SMART goal, right? It's an acronym, stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Alrighty, now we're back. I did not realize that like doing the video recording like this would kill my battery so fast. So I
Oh,
was
is
like,
that what
okay,
that was?
did I lose connection that fast? And I was like, oh, my battery died. That's the problem with these freaking tripods. I got one for like 20 bucks off Amazon because I've never been a tripod guy. Anytime I would film content in the gym, it was always funny because like the other trainers would always laugh at me because I also knew that like a lot of commercial gyms have a thing against tripods. I also didn't want to be like one of those broccoli haired tripod kids walking around with their Crocs and pajamas on. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to use a foam roller. I'm going to prop my bottle on top of the foam roller, and then I put my
Just put
foam
your
right
phone on
against my
that.
bottle. Yeah, exactly. And then like a lot of people wouldn't even notice I'm filming. And then it would be like tall enough to the point that like again I would get a good angle and view of what I'm doing. I was like, okay, that does the trick. And then yeah, the one other time that I did get a tripod, I ended up like breaking it the first day I got it. I'm like putting the pieces together, and I ended up like just jamming the one piece into it instead of taking my time to actually get the fit properly. And I'm like, yep, typical gym bro over here, like
Good
doesn't use
enough.
his yeah, doesn't use his brain. And so it's like
I
lopsided at this point. It's not leveled ever. And I'm like, yeah, I can't be using this. It looks horrible now. I'm like, crap. Yeah, just wasted 30 bucks.
Perfect. I never had the nerve to use a tripod in the gym, mostly just because
No.
it made me too anxious. So I got one of those little like it sticks to the back of my phone case and just
Yeah,
like does that, and
exactly.
so I can just like set it on my phone case. It looks very subtle, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And you don't want people looking at you too, because yeah, they'll just get
No,
like people glaring at you, and you're like, oh, please, I'm not one of those people, I promise.
you're
So
like, don't judge me. Just let me take my videos.
yeah, exactly. So where were we again? Trying to
You're
figure out.
talking about SMART goals.
Okay, yes, yes. Okay, yeah, like yeah, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So with it being specific, obviously, it's what the goal of the client, like it's the client's goal, right? So if they're coming to me and they want to lose weight, sometimes, they don't have a goal weight in mind, but you can try to like gear them towards admitting that they want to lose a certain amount of weight because they know, deep down what kind of weight that they want to lose or what weight they want to get back to. But sometimes it's like a sensitivity issue. They
Yeah.
don't want to admit that, hey, I need to lose 40 pounds because then, that's a big number. It's scary. So then they'll just say, I just want to tone or I just want to feel better, or I want my clothes to feel and fit better, which are all, valid goals. But
Mm-hmm.
saying something like that is just very broad and it doesn't allow the client to have a high success like a high succeeding rate, right? Because
Yeah,
like
because
if
there's
there's
no way to
nothing
really plan
concrete,
for that.
yeah, nothing concrete, then you can also just be very nonchalant with like what you're doing in the gym or your diet. So if you're saying, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds, okay, that's great. How are we going to measure that? By
Mm-hmm.
literally obviously doing fasted body weight. And I try to tell like all my online clients as well. It's like I only want your fasted body weight once a week. Okay, I don't want you measuring your weight every day because you're always going to have these micro fluctuations, right? And especially if you're someone who over obsesses over little things, and you get anxious and can also be self-sabotaging when you notice that something isn't going well for you. It's not going to be in your best interest to weigh yourself every day, right? So if you're doing it, say, every Sunday and you're fasted, it is going to be measurable because it's going to be under the same, circumstances that
Conditions.
you're weighing yourself, right? And then over a week, if you're at a 500 calorie deficit per day from where you're supposed to be at in terms of maintenance, and that number will be also, will greatly vary depending on if the person's going from being like completely sedentary to now weightlifting and doing cardio and all that. So
Mm-hmm.
that could be a lot of stuff to juggle if you're training on your own and you don't know how to come up with that number. So by like working with me too, that's the reason why we want to do weekly check-ins because it's not always going to be 100% mathematically correct, but it gives us a good number to work around and work with, right? So again, if our goal is weight loss and we think we're in a deficit, but we haven't lost any weight in 2 weeks, and say like body composition hasn't changed, right? Like we haven't lost
Mm-hmm.
any centimeters or inches off the waistline. If we are doing impedance, body fat percentage, measurements too, and that's not changing, then those are all pointing towards the idea that we're not in a deficit, right? So then I would just, manipulate, the calories a little bit. So then that way we are in a deficit. Because then if we're not losing weight at the amount of calories that we are currently consuming, then we also know that's probably maintenance,
Mhm.
right? So that also makes it easier to be like, okay, now I'm just going to cut the calories by 500, right? And then, yeah, keep protein high. Make sure, again, we're not feeling like crap in the gym. Our weights are still, at a decent, level in terms of strength. Yeah, feeling good. And then, yeah, that's the whole point is it's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. If it's attainable, it just means like, how are we doing it? By, cutting calories, prioritizing protein, making sure we're resting and recovering enough, drinking enough water, and then we're training in the gym and doing the workouts that we need to be doing, right? And then
Mhm.
with it being realistic, is it realistic that we can lose 40 pounds in like a month? No. And is it healthy? No. So that's the whole idea. If it's realistic, it's going to be the idea of losing 1 to 2 pounds a week, because we also know that if we are in a deficit of 3,500 calories, that's going to be the equivalency of losing 1 pound of stored body fat, right? And so if we're implementing a 500 calorie deficit daily for the whole week, then we know we're going to be losing around 1 pound of body fat. And obviously, if we're manipulating carbs and whatnot, we're eating less carbs, then that could also reflect itself in a greater weight loss on the scale. But we also know that we're still losing that 1 pound of fat, right? So we could be losing 3 pounds on the scale, but losing 1 pound of fat. And the rest of it is just from, glycogen stores being depleted from a decreasing carbohydrate intake. And then timely would just be like, okay, so our goal is 20 pounds weight loss. We know we're going to be losing about 1 pound of body fat, but overall 1 to 2 pounds of weight, per week. If we're doing the math, then we know it's going to be roughly around 10 to 20 weeks,
Yep.
right? So then it gives us a good game plan to work with. It's a lot better than just saying, hey, I just want to tone. I just want my clothes to feel a little bit better or whatnot. Like those could still be good things to work for. But if it's all those other things that I mentioned, now you have a game plan to work with. Because now it's like you
Yeah.
have all these steps that we're following because now we know we're weighing ourselves in on Sundays, fasted. We know we're cutting calories because we weren't in a deficit. We have a meal plan that we're following with a food scale, so we know where our calories are coming from and whatnot. And that's what is the measurable aspect of the SMART goal, right? And then if it's realistic and timely, then, like we know we're doing it in a safe and healthy manner. And it's definitely more attainable in that regard because, yeah, I've never, ever been a big fan of crash diets. And typically people will gain back the weight twice as fast as they lost it.
Yeah, because it's
Um,
just not sustainable long
yeah,
term. It's not
exactly.
healthy.
Especially like if it's like say like a cabbage soup diet or whatnot, like you're getting no protein. And a lot of times those people that are doing crash diets again are not doing weight training or anything like that. So you're down regulating your metabolism at that point because you have nothing demanding energy now. But then the second you start eating normally, yeah, you're going to gain a lot of weight because now your new maintenance is, 1,300 calories or it thinks it is.
Yeah.
So your body's going to be a lot more likely to want to store it as body fat, right? And people just fall into that vicious cycle because again, they don't want to admit that they need help. So I try to tell people
Yeah.
it's like, don't fall for crash diets. Look within, realize, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, and I need help. And there's no shame in doing that because I do
No.
that. Everybody should do that, and that's the whole point of being a dynamic, mature, and emotionally intelligent, human being, right? Like
Yeah.
nobody's good at everything, so you want to be a student of life. And humility allows for growth. I know that sounds corny, but it is true. Like you just got to
It's
realize, hey,
true.
I'm not the best, and that was the whole idea of what I said with the whole bodybuilding thing. Me going into the show or doing my first prep, and I was like, oh, I'll do great. Like it's easy. I'm fit, I'm lean, all these other things. And you realize how much actually goes into it and that you don't know much and you can always learn. So that's when, your ego, goes away and then you actually start to grow properly. And that also has a carryover to other things in life because you realize, hey, I'm not top shit. I need to learn. I need to get better. And you want to get better at everything, right? And then once you do, like it makes you a better person. And it also makes it easier and better for you to also help people as well, because then you also know that they're, coming from a vulnerable state, like I said. And if you have an ego and you think you're better than everyone, you can tend to try to like talk down to people and
Yeah.
that won't make people receptive or want to learn or get better. And I think that's the issue. I feel like a lot of people that are scared of the gym or whatnot, it's because people that had, big egos, but also a lot of insecurities probably made them afraid of going to the gym, right? The whole idea of people judging you and whatnot. I try to tell people, I'm like, yo, most people that are in the gym are in the same shoes as you. They
Yeah.
think they're getting judged. Even the fucking people that are, muscular and fit and lean that you think are like impressive, they're probably in their own heads too. Like some of these
Yep.
guys that are super muscular are going to be the most insecure people you will ever meet. And there's a reason why they look like that is because they're compensating for something. But it doesn't always mean that they're bad people. It just means like, yeah, that's what they do to make themselves feel better. But then they can also, again, project onto other people, right? So it's always important to self analyze and see if you're being the best person that you can be, but also it takes a good person to also want to uplift others around them and make them feel comfortable and confident in their own skin. And that's the whole point. The gym, we want it to be an inclusive environment and make people want to do it because it's something that people need to do. Like,
Yes.
I
Agreed.
am a fan of body positivity to a certain extent, but you got to realize when it isn't something that is actually healthy, right? And I think it's also kind of funny that body positivity is almost exclusively only for women. I'm not trying to sound, like an incel or a misogynist, but like, like I feel like with dudes, if they're fat, they're just like, yo, he's a fat dude. You know what I mean? But then like women, they'll use all these different words to, make it feel like it's less unhealthy. Like they'll be like, oh, curvy or thick. And again, like you're fine with being whatever, body type that you are. But if you're not actively trying to do things that are healthy and you're, blissfully ignorant to the damage that you're doing to yourself, or if you have a platform and you're spreading, body positivity, but you're enabling a lot of other people that have negative eating habits and whatnot, it's not going to be good, right? Because I feel like,
Yeah.
again, if people think, hey, like, I can eat what I want, it's okay that, I'm 300 pounds because, body positivity, but then, you're not going to associate that with heart disease, diabetes, and then all these other things, and even like the health of your offspring. There's other even data coming out now that like if you're an obese woman and you're pregnant, well, you're going to have a greater chance of having kids that have like learning disabilities too, right? And that doesn't get talked enough, right? And if you do have a kid, do you want to live long for your kid? You know what I mean? Like it's okay to love your body and be confident with it, but you also got to try to be healthy, right? So doing
Yeah.
something is better than not doing anything, right? So if you're 300 pounds and you're okay with that, like I'd still want you to be working out at least, or trying to eat something healthy or limit snacks. But it doesn't mean like, yeah, hate yourself or want to be something that you're not. But I feel like, yeah, the body positivity thing could be doing more harm than good because it and might not be for the best.
Yeah, it can definitely get like a little bit misconstrued because there's a difference between loving and accepting yourself at whatever
Yeah,
stage that your body is at, but still taking steps to take care of your health and
yeah,
looking after yourself versus using that kind of body positivity umbrella as an excuse to just say, well, this is what I am. I'm
yeah.
not going to make any effort to better myself or take care of my health because
But they also might
everything's
even
okay.
realize they might not even realize that they don't feel good. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you get to a
exactly.
point where you're so used to eating fast food and processed food that and because you don't work out, you don't realize that like this isn't optimal fuel for your body, right? Like for me, if I were to like have a cheat meal, and I'm not the cleanest eater ever, but like I'll eat certain foods and I'll feel that direct impact right away. Like I'll feel like my skin is
Mhm.
oily, I'll feel lethargic, my, training sucks because I feel, weighted down and bloated and gross, right? So
Yeah.
once you get used to eating a certain way, you don't even realize that it's having, that negative impact on you until you start eating healthy or you start working out and you start realizing, yo, like I'm putting garbage in my body. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah,
the
because
whole
your
point.
body
It's
is
like,
great at adapting to those
yeah,
kind of things.
yeah,
It will get accustomed to whatever you throw at it, and so yeah, if you are constantly bombarding it with a certain way of eating,
yeah.
it's going to adapt to make that feel okay, and you may not realize just how big of an impact it's having on your day to day. But I would agree, it's a really sensitive topic for a lot of people. And I
Yeah.
think you're right in saying that you really have to be careful in the way that you approach this with people and the ways in which that you move them through it. And it's important to be honest with them and set goals that are realistic and work through it with them in a way that they can actually attain, while also being mindful of the fact that they're in a really vulnerable position.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's just all
Obviously.
baby steps and day in, day out, doing what you can. And I think that's the issue, though, is that with the modern day, people are always going to be looking for the quick fixes. And so,
Hmm.
like, with a lot of those people that were, ironically enough, in the body positivity and they were like, I don't want to change, it's okay for me to be the size that I am, they also did jump on that Ozempic bandwagon, right? And then again, they were ignorant to the potential negative health effects that that medication could be doing to their body. And that's the whole point. It's like, again, like we should be doing things that we know we can control that could be benefiting us in the long term. Because ultimately, if you were 100% for body positivity and you liked the way you looked, a lot of these people wouldn't have been jumping on Ozempic, right? So obviously, I feel like it's a cope. I feel like they are preaching uh, a very fake confidence. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to admit, like, hey, like I don't like the way I look. You know, like I don't feel comfortable with my body. So they do a complete 180 and they try to like make it seem like they are. But then if that was the case, why are you on Ozempic, right? It was like what's her name? Lizzo ended up doing that too. I remember like she was very big on like, I love my body, the way it looks, curves and all that. But then, you jump on Ozempic and you lose all this weight. I'm like, good for you for doing that. But like I feel like a lot of those people that are in the body positivity community, they are just pretending to be, confident in how they look. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And that's sad. And that's sad as well. And again, I am afraid of people again, just the bandwagon appeal, right? And like, I don't know, misery loves company, or again, like if you have people who are famous or have good influence or big influence, sorry, and they're saying, hey, it's okay that you're doing all these things. It's okay that you're eating all this food and it's okay to be this size. They feel validated, right? So now they don't feel
Yeah.
like they need to change. But then again, like I said, the prevalence of like heart disease, cancers, diabetes, all these things is at an all time high. So you need to be educated on the fact that like again, yes, you can be whatever size you want, but you have to be aware, hey, like this is bad. It's not
Yeah. And
good.
it's hard
It's
too,
not
because I think
healthy.
similarly
You don't want to
to,
be preachy. You don't want to be preachy and you don't want them to feel bad to the point again like they don't want to try. So again, you got to know that they're
no.
vulnerable, but like just be like, hey, let me help you get here. I'm not judging you. And again, you're fine to be whoever you want to be. But again, like if you're coming to me and you're working with me as a client, I know that deep down you want change, right? Like you
Yes.
wouldn't want help if you didn't want change. So again, accountability and just being able to say, hey, like I need help and I don't like the way I look, and then that takes confidence and level of security in oneself to be able to admit that. But admit that you need change is the first step.
Yeah.
You can't say like, "Hey, I don't need to change," because then you're obviously not going to do what it takes to better yourself. So
Hmm. Yeah. And I think it's hard too when people get kind of caught up in, like, when we're talking about like body positivity type content. Like I'm all for that kind of self love and
yeah,
stuff like that. But it's
yeah,
similarly to posting like diet stuff on social media and stuff like that. You have
yeah,
a very small window of time to communicate something that is actually very nuanced and very
yeah,
hard to fit into this short box. And I think it gets misconstrued sometimes that you can love yourself and accept yourself, but also be working to take
yeah,
these steps to better yourself and be
yeah.
looking to
And
take these
that's the
steps
whole
to
point
improve
of
your health.
life.
And that's not getting
Yeah,
communicated as effectively as it could be on
yeah,
some platforms. And so I think it gets missed that you were either fully loving and accepting of who you are and you're not changing anything, or you hate yourself and you're
yeah.
working to be better. And there doesn't seem to be any middle ground. There's no room
No,
for you to be somewhere in between.
yeah, and that's the whole point too with social media. It is very divided within regards to like a lot of different topics, especially within the fitness industry. So again, you're going to get people that obviously are attacking the body positivity people, and then vice versa, or like for people that are too blunt and saying like, hey, like you need to fix yourself, you need to lose weight. Those people get attacked, but then the people that are like pro body positivity, but that's more like, yeah, I'm binge eating and not eating healthy and not working out. Like that's not body positivity.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. It's like it's so divided, nuanced, and I feel like yeah, people just need to be more loving and respectful to each other. And again, like I said with before, it's all about emotional roots, especially like when you're dealing with a new client. You know that like they're coming from a place of not feeling confident. They're a little insecure. This is new for them, right? So I feel like the people that want to preach, hey, like you need to be healthy, you need to realize that like there's some emotional roots here that,
Yes.
there's a reason why they are the way they are, right? It's kind of like, okay, they're apples and oranges, so I'm not comparing them completely, but the same kind of thing, right? Like with people who are drug addicts, a lot of times they did not come from, like a stable childhood, or, like they were dealing with a lot of traumas, and, that drug or something ended up helping them feel better. But then people will like not want to help them because they're like, oh, it's self-induced. Like they'll look at them and they'll be like, ugh, like, yeah, I don't want to be like you, or like, yeah, they don't want to help them. You know what I mean? And that's really sad. But, like you got to be sympathetic of like the situation that people are coming from, and you never know what
Right.
someone's going through. So that's the whole point. Is like if I'm dealing with a client, I will always make sure that again they know that like I'm not judging them, and that like I'd rather you be open and have like good open communication with me. So then that way I know if there's things that you're struggling with mentally, or again, like if I'm working with an online client, like I want them to be open to the fact that like, hey, I wasn't on plan completely, this week. And like I had cheat meals, or I've been dealing with like these, stressors in my life. I appreciate them telling me and being open about it, because then at least now we can fix that, and like I can help you with those things. Because that's the thing, is like I feel like with my upbringing, like the things I've been through for my life, I feel like I often, people judge me, judge a cover by its book by its cover. Sorry, I reversed that. But I feel like I'm very, accepting, emotionally intelligent, and the fact that like I can sympathize and empathize with people, and like nobody has a perfect life. But again, I'd rather people be open with me, and that obviously takes time, right? People need to
Yeah.
build trust with you, and it's a hard thing for some people. And like again, if you want to be successful as a personal trainer, the big thing is again like you're not selling personal training, you're selling yourself,
Yeah.
right? In regards to again, are you a genuine human being? People are smarter than you think they are. They can read through it and they know when it's like you're just there for sales, right? And
Yeah.
then that ruins your image, because then you're not putting your best foot forward. You're not helping people the best that you can. And so my advice to anybody that's coming into the industry and they're like, hey, how can I be successful? I literally tell them like, give a shit. Literally
Yeah.
learn how to deal with diverse populations. Obviously know what you're talking about, but most important thing is again, meet people where they are, and
Mm-hmm.
then understand that like they need help, and sometimes they don't want to admit it, or admit that they have problems, right? And sometimes with more experience, you start to notice certain trends with certain clients when they are struggling, and sometimes taking the initiative as a trainer and be like, hey, like, are you okay? Like, I know like this isn't being done, or you don't seem like yourself. And then that's the personal connection, right? And that's what separates this from again watching a YouTube video and learning how to do it that way, because then that's what helps people stay on track, and also helps build trust with them, with you. And that'll also help you with your referrals, or again having them um, you know, re-sign with you for another contract. Because ultimately, like, if you're a trainer, you're doing everything the right way. I'm sorry, but like most times, clients don't need to re-sign with you. After a year, if you
Yeah.
gave them
Giving
everything
them
that
what
they
they
need,
need.
yeah, exactly, they don't need you.
Mm-hmm.
But a good trainer will keep clients because they know that like what you're giving them is invaluable, and that's personal and specific to you as a trainer, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you want to be successful in the industry, you have to give a shit and then meet people where they are and treat people as human, right? You're not looking for money and the quick buck.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think it's so important to make yourself kind of that safe space for them and coming into it with a certain level of looking to understand them and having compassion for them because like you said, people are coming in with very complex histories and reasons for why they are where they are. There isn't just one factor that has gotten them to the position that they're in. It's so multifaceted, and it
Yeah,
requires someone who is going to care enough to look for all of those little elements and pay attention to
yeah. Yeah, like imagine like
where they
yeah,
need help.
kid feels like they didn't get enough love, from their parents, and then they turn to food for comfort, right? And then that's a reason why, like they're overweight, right? And sometimes, a client won't admit that that was the reason why, they are what they are, but obviously that is a very sensitive thing for them, right? And then
Mhm.
that's the whole point is like you're trying to replace bad habits that might be a result of trying to deal with traumas while growing up or whatever, and then replacing it with healthier ones, but also allowing them to feel safe and secure in your presence, and they feel like they're allowed to open themselves up to you and admit when they're struggling and whatnot. And that could even be like just for if you're in a relationship too, like you need to be actively listening and trying to be the best partner that you can be, right? Like, don't be dismissive. Don't assume things of people. Don't get defensive. All these things, and that applies for personal training, right? And relationships. And if you want something to be healthy and lawn sustaining, like yeah, you got to be doing your best to make sure that they feel valued and respected.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more because you're right, people are not dumb. They will know when
Yeah,
you are coming at them with that kind of energy of looking to
yeah.
truly help them versus looking to just make a quick buck.
Yeah, and that's the issue with commercial gyms, right? The urge to sell, and then like you need to hit certain numbers. You're given the script to follow, and like sometimes the script can be a good little guideline to, but the personal touch, and again, meeting people where they are and showing like, hey, I'm a human. I know you're human. So, let's try to build a connection and make you feel like you're important. That's a big
Yeah,
thing. If you're
yeah,
like, hey, you got to get you signed up. What are you spending all your money on? Oh, you're doing Uber Eats this amount of times? Okay, let's cut this back. Alcohol this amount of time per week? Okay, we're cutting that back. Now you can afford it. Now let's sign you up. Okay, deal? Yes. So you're very quick with that, and you're like doing the whole, sales pitch that you get taught. Like again, yes, it can help, but you're too aggressive with it. Yeah, people can read right through it, and especially if you didn't
yeah.
already set up that connection with people. And I always find the best thing for me for getting clients was a lot of time was just doing things not for free, but like out of the goodness of my heart because I wanted to help people. So like
Hmm.
there'd be people like I would see at the gym and I'd give them free advice, or like they'd come to me and ask me things and stuff like that, and that helped build the connection. It wasn't from me necessarily, doing prospects or doing consults with them. And then because I did that enough, and I feel like you could do that same thing for Instagram. Again, you're posting enough quality content that is, free and accessible. People start to build trust with you, and because you seem like you're someone who has answers, people will typically go towards you, right? Especially because
Yeah,
you're not looking for something from them. So when people see your content, they know that you're genuine and you're actually just trying to help, right? And that, usually bodes well for building your business and building trust with people.
agreed. If you had to give one piece of advice to somebody who is just starting their fitness journey, what would it be?
I would say if the gym is scary for you and you don't want to hire a trainer, definitely work out with friends. So then that way you have a good support system. You're able to like help carry each other through, plateaus, or like when, life gets to be a bit too heavy. Because obviously, like, yeah, if you have other things that are, taking precedent or importance in your life, then the gym can fall, on the back burner.
Mhm.
So if you're training with friends and you like have a specific time that you guys are going and working out, that'll also help with, sticking to a schedule, but also make you feel more comfortable in the gym because you're with someone who can, help support you, spot you, tell you if your form's not great or whatnot. Like obviously there's, you're not always going to be able to fine tune it perfectly, like if you were working with a trainer, but that is a good place to start for most people. And then yeah, try your best to create a game plan. Like obviously first getting into the gym and just kind of like getting comfortable with it is going to be important, but like know that like like everything in life kind of has to have a game plan. You can't just like go with the flow. So ultimately you got to realize, hey, like why am I coming to the gym? What am I working towards? Same kind of idea, like try to adopt a smart goal mindset, even if it's just you doing your own training, but then that'll also help give you guidance, right? Like okay, I need to dial in my diet, then let's try to follow a meal plan, or again buy one of those apps that can help you with knowing where your calories are coming from, and have a diet pre-made for you. Like one that's pretty good is like the Carbon Diet app. And that's by Lane Norton, who has a PhD in nutritional sciences. And again, he has a background in powerlifting and bodybuilding, all that stuff. He's really good. So that's a good tool for someone to use. So again, MyFitnessPal, just bare in, entry level kind of stuff. And then that's the whole point, is that it's all about knowledge and educating yourself. And if you're a complete beginner, everything's going to be new to you. Everything's going to be something that you're going to be learning. So you just got to be a sponge. And then if you don't know something, ask for help. But that's the whole point. It's just day in, day out, try to do everything that you need to do. Be kind to yourself, but then, yeah, just don't compare yourself to other people. So if you're new, comparison is going to be a thief of joy, right? So you got to
Yeah.
be proud of the progress that you made, right? You're only got your body, and it's you versus you, right? So if you can be better every day, ultimately that's the most important thing. Don't compare yourself to, this 18-year-old who's, sauced out of his gills and he's benching 500 pounds, like that's great for him, but, it doesn't mean that you need to be like that or do that for yourself. So, and I think that will help a lot with a lot of people's mental health, because I think that's the whole point, is like with social media and whatnot, a lot of people, again, start comparing themselves to other people, and they get down on themselves. They're like, why don't I look like that? Like, this guy hasn't been trained that long. He looks better than me already. Like, what am I doing wrong? And then that's where the prevalence of, like, using, steroids or fat burners or anything like that starts happening a lot. And I think it doesn't get talked enough about, because like we talked about at the very beginning, um, like with men having eating disorders and, self-esteem issues, I feel like a lot of men don't want to admit that they do, because of the fact that it gets frowned on, or they feel like, especially like in the context of a relationship, a lot of men feel like they lose the respect of the woman that they're dating if they, admit that they have insecurities or issues, or, if they're vulnerable about the traumas that they went through. Because I've had that happen to myself. So a lot of men don't want to admit that they're not mentally healthy, or that they need help, and then they try to compensate in other ways, right? So the body, insecurity issues usually manifest themselves in, men at a young age taking steroids, SARMs, fat burners, and stuff like that. But then, because it's not them, say, starving themselves or cutting themselves, it's not visually apparent that that is the reason why they're doing it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or because, yeah, you got these kids on TikTok that are blowing up in terms of like popularity and engagement. They have like these affiliate codes for like these research chemical websites. Then it just gets looked at as like a, I don't know, like a trendy thing. It's like, oh, it's just these dumb kids that are just, doing this stuff to look better and whatnot. But it's like, why do you think they're doing that? Because, a lot of men struggle with, self-esteem issues. They do compare themselves, especially on Instagram. Same thing that women go through, men do the same thing.
Yeah.
They want to be more muscular, or again, like, I remember in this one video, and it was so freaking funny, and like it just highlights again how skewed people's perception of what health and fitness actually is and what it looks like. Is, I remember there was a video of like women getting interviewed in the street, and they were getting asked what they thought of Chris Bumstead in his off season. And, he's probably like 10% body fat at most, but like 270 pounds of muscle, right? At like 6'1". So they're going up to women and they were like, oh, dad bod. You know what I mean? And they thought it was attractive, but like calling him a dad bod, like, there's a reason why a lot of men feel like they're not good enough, right? And they don't look good enough, and why they need to do the things that they do, like I said before. So, yeah, I think that was the big point I wanted to drive home about, like, yeah, self-esteem, and again, like, just being sympathetic to people, and like not everybody's going to show, their vulnerabilities, but then it takes a good coach or trainer to be able to like kind of read in between the lines and see why people are doing what they're doing, right? And
Yeah.
typically the guys that do, take bodybuilding super seriously and get super muscular again, like, it's probably because they came from them being a kid who was always the smallest, or never felt like they were good enough, or they built the muscle to like protect themselves. You know what I mean? Like they came from an abusive, household, or like I know I had one friend, and like I'm obviously not gonna say his name or anything, but like I knew he got into the gym and trained hard and all that because he was sexually assaulted as a kid, and he felt like that's what he needed to do to, like, he didn't outright come out and say that, but like, you know, he did
In
that
an
to,
indirect way, kind
yeah,
of.
make himself feel like he was more safe, right? And that it
Yeah.
wouldn't happen again to him. And, you know, like I work as a bouncer at one of the clubs too downtown, and I always found, funnily enough, that the people I usually have the worst time with are usually the smaller guys that I don't know, they usually, you know, take out their anger on women or whatnot. It's never usually the big guys. And I find that with the bigger guys, it's because, like I said, they came from, you know, a childhood where they were bullied, or, you know, they didn't feel like they were good enough or whatnot. So they don't typically, you know, try to compensate in that regard. But then, yeah, the guys that are smaller, like they'll take it out on people that they know that they can, you know, get over on them, you know, like physically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then it's like when I have to intervene, I'm like, okay, well, you know, Mr. Big Guy over here, you know, you're gonna touch women inappropriately, I'm gonna throw you out, and now you can get to deal with me, you know. So it's, I don't know, it's a little side tangent, but yeah, I always find that funny. So yeah, you can't always judge people, you know, based off of what they look like, because sometimes like the nicest guys you'll meet are usually the guys that are like muscular or whatnot, or seem intimidating. But it's because they had to put up almost, you know, that mask so that they could feel, you know, more comfortable or safe. Or they might
Mhm.
even want to be, you know, the change that they want to see in the world. They actually want to make people around them feel more safe, you know, in their presence. And they could be like the biggest teddy bear that you'll ever see, you know. And then the guy that could be actually the most dangerous and most aggressive and violent could be the guy who doesn't look the part because he feels like he needs to be, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah, and I think these are all really important things to be mindful of if you were just getting into
yeah,
fitness, working out, and things like that, is being mindful of where you've come from and what your mindset is around the things that you're doing, and not comparing yourself to where everybody else is and what
yeah,
everybody else looks like, and just trying to be a little bit better
yeah.
day
But
by
also
day.
don't
It's like
forget, everybody starts somewhere. So
everybody
like I
starts
said,
somewhere.
like that guy that's super jacked now, I'm like, yeah, maybe he was like the super skinny kid at 15. That was when he started working out, right? So that's the whole point. Is like, don't put a cap on what you can actually achieve. It's just all about, like, again, staying in your lane, staying focused on what you're doing, and then, yeah, getting better day by day. Because like you never know, if you tried hard and you know, did everything that you're supposed to, maybe you could get to be bigger than that guy. It doesn't always need to be your goal, but you never know unless you try. And again, just stay on your own path and know that it's, you're on this journey for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's awesome advice. If people wanted to find you on social media, if they wanted to
Yeah.
work with you as a trainer, if they want to work with you online, where can they find you?
Obviously through Instagram, through my handle, just Jake Wilson Fitness. I am working on doing an ad that I'll probably be running again through Kijiji, preferably also Facebook Marketplace, but it's very iffy with that. I don't know how some of these people, you know, get the go ahead, because anytime I try to like change my wording on like my advertisement, and it ends up getting flagged and gets taken down. But yeah, as of right now, like I'm working freelance. I'm not working at a gym currently. I might be going back to Good Life, but it would be the Rideau location instead of Saint Laurent. So you could work with me there if I do get that. I can do in-person training at a gym where I just, you know, pay a drop-in fee to then train my client because he's my friend who owns the gym. Otherwise, yeah, I could do online coaching as well. And like I said, a lot of it will just be me getting to know the client or the person, you know, see where they're starting at, you know, what they feel comfortable with, how often do they want to train a week, do they feel comfortable with, like I said, doing the whole meal prepping thing and food scale because of what we brought up before. Just makes it easier to see if you're like actually staying on track. And again, the progress is more measurable at that point, and then again, it gives them peace of mind. But the big benefit with doing online training with me, again, it is hands off for me. It's pretty passive, which is nice. But then I'm able to still check in on them. They could still reach out to me if they have questions in regards to, you know, anything that they're doing for the program. But it also gets them to also do their blood work and then supplement recommendations based off their blood work too. Or again, like if we know that we need to fix certain things in the diet to help with, you know, certain health conditions, that is a big thing. And I don't think enough people do that. So like again, with the online coaching, again, they help me out with me creating the program for them, and then it's just small little changes week by week based off of again how they're adhering to it, how they're feeling, and then like the progress they're making in terms of fat loss or scale, that kind of thing. So yeah, in-person training. You can always hit me up, reach out to me in the DMs, or online too, cheaper. And again, do a little consult, see where you're at, see if we'd be a good fit, and then yeah, just understand that it's not active one-on-one training, but if you feel like you can stick to a plan and listen to instructions decently well, then it would be a good fit for you, especially if you're trying to save money.
Awesome. Awesome. I
Perfect.
think you've probably worked through all of my questions, but thank you so much. Like you've
Awesome.
provided a ton of really valuable information about fitness and what to expect from a personal trainer and what your journey's kind of been like coming into this. So thank you so much for coming
Awesome.
on here and talking to
Perfect.
us. And
Perfect. Thank
for
you.
you guys listening, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next episode.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily.
If you like the show, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review, or share the show with a friend. Your support allows this show to reach even more amazing people just like you, and it means the absolute world to me. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time at the Mindset Gym.